Well, let me give you a little quick rundown of what's happening here. This is a show called The Line, run by a bunch of liberals. I've called in to discuss transgender youth healthcare and the new paradigm that's making waves in Europe, which is that Finland, Denmark, and Sweden and the UK are now refusing to give transgender kids hormones or surgical intervention. After 20 years of study, over the past 20 years, they've had an 8,700% increase in the amount of people who have been attempting to get transgender care in the form of hormones, top bottom surgeries. And after all this data, they're now coming to the conclusion that they're no longer going to do that. And I'm trying to reference an article that breaks down a study that the Danish did. And I'm not even allowed to get into the first paragraph of the article about the medical publication.
Actually present good information, Jacob, but here is the thing. My guess is going to be that you have a very politically charged understanding of this coming from the place of where what you want the answer to be, that you probably
I don't have any bullshit that he's talking about there. That's totally untrue.
haven't deconstructed from the, we'll call it sexual oppression and patriarchy of this country that comes by default, and what you will be working in.
What in the world is he talking about there? What in the world does that have to do with the subject at hand?
Jacob isn't a person who started with wanting to be trans accepting and then have just went and learned all the right things to affirm it. I was transphobic. I rejected trans identity. I rejected it was possible. I rejected that anybody was legitimately transgender until actually right around the time I started my YouTube channels when my views started to change on it. And even then I was keeping to myself mostly that I was still feeling a lot of like, but what about these other 90 genders? So Jacob, not only will you need to present information that is compelling, it will have to outdo the myriad information that I have that changed my mind before and have to completely debunk what is lots of science and lots of studies, and currently the scientific consensus. So Jacob, you as an atheist are going to be calling with the currently anti-science position.
Incorrect. I'm calling with the new scientific consensus, at least in Europe.
To get Forrest and myself, yes, hang on, I will let you in a moment. Anything which is basically saying trans people are not legitimate or shouldn't have their health care or whatever, that would be the anti-science position.
Not what I'm talking about whatsoever. I do not have a problem with adult transgender people having health care. The problem is, nor do I have a problem with youth having transgender health care. It's just the way they go about it.
We would be trying to get Forrest and I to change our mind to the anti-science position. But then even beyond that, Jacob, if you are only voting based on trans care when it affects so few people, then I also think that's just insane, because you are an atheist and I assume value church and state separation and should be very worried about the fact that his first term undermined a ton of it, and that his second is have even more atheists or Muslims, because you are worried. Hang on, Jacob, because you just said you may not want trans people to join.
Okay, so I'm specifically talking about trans youth. And so my perspective is you're working off old scientific literature. I'm working off of current scientific literature.
Incorrect.
And also,
you are also incorrect. Just so you know, you are incorrect.
I'll quote you some papers here in just a moment. But and
fine.
Also,
and I'll quote
just
you
to give you just to give you some like my higher level thinking on this is, you know, the American system, the American healthcare system.
Yeah, I'm working off a bias, and when I tell him he's working off the old scientific literature, I'm working off a brand new scientific literature, automatically says I'm wrong, he's right. Who's biased?
The capitalistic system. And we've seen atrocities come through, like the opioid pandemic and such. And in a capitalistic system, there's always pressures that are not right. They're not just. They're just fed by greed, essentially. I think we can all agree on that.
Yep.
So I picked my studies from countries that have non-capitalistic healthcare. So
can I start really quick before we go any further, I just want to reiterate that you are saying that you have more accurate, up-to-date information about this than every major medical association in the country, and also the World Health Organization, because you have read a couple of studies from some non-capitalistic countries, and that is why you understand this issue better than them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. I'm quoting papers from. I've got,
Great.
I misspoke there. I don't mean to say that I have more knowledge than them. I mean to say that there's a new paradigm that's taking wind in Europe and should be spreading across all of Europe soon. And that's how that transgender youth is treated and not giving puberty blockers and not given top and bottom surgeries.
Just
I'm
really
glad you're
quickly,
in Tennessee
really
because your vote doesn't matter. With that arrogance, I'm glad
just
you're
really
in
quickly,
Tennessee.
do you have any formal training in either biology or medicine?
no.
Okay, so
I'm just reading the
having
studies.
having a degree doesn't make you right. However, I should point out,
I don't need a degree to read a conclusion from a scientific paper and take the scientist's word for it. When we're talking about 4 separate countries, you include the Cass report in Britain, soon to be more.
that before I would say like probably the end of my undergraduate education, I didn't know how to read a study properly. So even when I read a study, I wasn't getting the information that I thought that I really should have been getting out of it because I didn't know how to critically analyze a study, and I thought that it was common, just everybody knows you just read what's on the paper. It's a lot more difficult than that. Having a degree doesn't make you right. Having a higher education doesn't make you right. None of that. But I just want to make sure that you're hearing what I'm hearing when you say that you, with no education or training in this area at all, have read some papers and now believe that you understand this issue more, like in a more detailed and serious and nuanced way than the World Health Organization and the American
I'm not
Medical
claiming to
Association.
know more than the World Health Organization.
But you do hold a different position than them based on the couple of studies that you, as someone with no education in this area, have read. You now know something that they don't know, and then they are doing medicine wrong.
Yes,
Jacob,
and
give me the first study.
WHO
Give me the
was
first one.
lobotomizing.
There's more than one way to do medicine, so that's not a true dichotomy.
Let's just.
Wait, no, hang on, Jacob. Jacob, when was that? When were they?
67 or whatever it was. I don't know the exact
WHO.
date, but
Okay, so you're just gonna throw out buzzwords that you know. Basically, Jacob, the reason why I'm asking you this
What's a buzzword there?
is because not
can I
only
make
have you
the
shown,
point?
not only have you shown from the onset that you are operating on bias, you've also shown that you are listening.
How have I shown that I'm operating on bias? By reading a scientific study and accepting its conclusions?
To people like Matt Walsh, might not be Matt Walsh, but you're
don't
repeating
know
the
Matt Walsh
phrases
is.
they say without having intimate knowledge of the phrase itself. If I wanted this, I could just put on Newsmax. But go ahead, Jacob. What
I don't
is
know who
your?
Matt Walsh is, by the way.
Sure, I already said it might not have been him specifically. I gave a for example. I also don't believe you, Jacob. Yes, you do. You know who Matt Walsh is because you've watched What Is a Woman and you've internalized it and you've been like, this guy's
that
smart.
dude?
But whatever, Jacob.
I've never
Oh,
seen the
wow.
movie.
I was right. Uh-huh. Jacob,
Well, I mean, if you
go ahead.
name
What
the-
study do you want to
I
bring?
don't know the guy. I mean, he's been in like the sphere. If you list the movie that's
Wait,
been in the
what
news,
study?
I can equate it to
What
him.
study?
I
What
just want
study?
to make a point real quick before we move on. Let me make one point before we move on to studies. At every point in history, as we develop new procedures in science, these organizations have been wrong. And then
Yeah, just so you know, I looked it up. The WHO has never recommended lobotomizing people. It literally took me 10 seconds to Google and find out that what you just said
He's full of crap there. I tried to Google it and could not find any information on whether or not the WHO recommended lobotomizing people.
was not true. That you made up a point of, well, science is wrong sometimes. And by the way, sometimes it is. And it gets better with time. And you know what so far has gotten better? Transgender care. The fact of the matter is you aren't going to see it talked about in the DSM-6 the way...
Oh, and he's about to start insulting me. I think we get up to maybe 10 or 11 insults by the end of this.
talked about in the DSM-5 because even our adaptations of that have changed and the treatment is, and still #1 recommended current day science and studies reaffirmed year after year treatment for being trans if you have gender dysphoria is transition. But you know that, Jacob. You're thinking you can get one over on two systems like ourselves instead of being brave and calling the show tomorrow when you could actually talk to trans people, including a fucking doctor who you can call the doctor tomorrow and tell the doctor who just finished medical school last year that his understanding of trans issues is behind your own.
Instead of being brave and calling tomorrow, they're literally telling people to call the show to talk about this subject.
And the WHO used to recommend lobotomizing people. But Jacob, are you already embarrassed, or do you need to keep going?
No,
right. When are you going to share these studies? When are you going to share these studies? When are you going to share these?
Okay,
What? You're not embarrassed that you lied about the WHO recommending lobotomies? I would be embarrassed if I was so wrong.
I'm not embarrassed that I'm a human. I made a mistake and I quoted the wrong agency.
You should be. You should be embarrassed. That should embarrass you.
Do you make mistakes? Are you embarrassed?
Yeah, it embarrasses me when I do. Jacob, when I make
What are
mistakes,
those
it
studies?
embarrasses me, especially when I speak into confidently something that is untrue. It embarrasses the fuck out of
The
me.
point remains. Valid.
What's the study?
regardless
Go
of the
ahead. Study number one.
Okay,
Study number one. What's the one?
This is from, let's see here. This is from Denmark, segm.org. Denmark joins the list of countries that have sharply restricted youth gender transitions. And this is coming from Denmark. Denmark has the highest number of people identified
What is this?
transgender.
Excuse me, Jacob.
So if he would have let me continue right there, in about 2 sentences, I would have gotten to the study.
I not speaking English? Am I speaking whatever they speak in Denmark? Is it Dutch?
I just told you the study.
I asked for Jacob, you did not tell me the study. You told me there is an article speaking about how Denmark has put restrictions on youth transitioning.
I'm summarizing the article.
That's not a study. That's not a study. Articles about the news are also not studies. What is the name of the study? What is the serial number of the study? What's the special identifier number for medical?
I think I said this before, but the article is a summary of the study.
Journal's called?
DOI.
What is the DOI, Jacob?
Or the PMID is more likely in that case if it's a medical one.
The PMID. Let's see here. It is in it's in Danish. Let me see if I can translate here.
Well, the nice thing about numbers, it's numbers. The PMID is a number.
Yeah,
it's the same in Danish.
I'm making it up, dude.
Give me the name of it. Like, at least I can
no,
type it in
Jacob,
Google
you're
Scholar or
proving
something.
that you don't actually understand what you're talking about, that you have a preconceived bias, and that you're going,
Also,
hey, this
by
thing that I
reading a
think
study-
agrees with me is the proof I'm right. You are,
Jacob,
yes,
you
by
did
reading
study.
a study you
Read the
don't
study.
understand.
You didn't read the study. You read an article about the study. You just said the study's in Danish.
No,
You can't translate it.
Well, right now I read it before. The
Okay,
forward
what was
and the
it called?
conclusion.
What's the
let's
title
see
of
here.
it?
Did you just say you
see
only
here.
read the forward and the conclusion?
Yeah,
So now they're gonna gaslight the shit out of me and tell me that if you read the foreword and the conclusion, that your understanding is invalid. As a layperson, somebody who studied mechanical engineering, I'm not a biology major, so the meat and potatoes of the science in the middle of the study is for the scientist. The foreword and the conclusion is for lay people, the general public, and the press. The reason they include the conclusion is for people's understanding who are not capable of understanding every piece of information within the dense scientific literature. That's blatantly obvious. And they're going to gaslight the shit out of me and tell me that by reading the foreword and conclusion, my take on it is invalid.
I skimmed it.
You skimmed it. You skimmed
You're
it.
a fucking
I read the
joke.
conclusion.
You have a child,
You
and I
skimmed it.
desperately hope, Jacob, I desperately hope your child doesn't turn out to be trans because you'll be an abusive father.
There's one. What insult.
That's the shitty part
So
of it, Jacob.
the
That's the
conclusion.
fucking
So you tell
shitty
me I
part of
can't
it.
understand. I knew you
Just
guys
to be
would make
clear.
this impossible. You can't have a
you know,
reasonable
you know,
conversation
Jacob,
about this.
It was-
Jacob, you just
think
told
you're
us.
reasonable?
You just told
Hold
us.
up, here it is. Here
You
it is.
just
The
told
Journal
us
of Danish
that you
Medical
have.
Association.
No, Jacob,
Here's the-
you just told
here's
us
the
that you have no training in this area, but you skimmed a study in another language, and therefore you know something that the
God.
World Health Organization and the American Medical Association don't know, and they're behind the times. You
Never claim to know something they don't know.
think it's possible
Yes, and they-
that the people at the World Health Organization and the American Medical Association are aware of this study? Do you think they might know that it exists?
If there even is a study. At this point, I'm not even convinced there's more
no.
than an article.
You don't think
The
they know it
Journal of
exists?
The Danish Medical. I have no clue if they know it
Hey,
exists.
Arden, do you know
This is
what
where-
he's
this is
trying
where-
to get at?
yes,
I know what he's trying to get at.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
It
You
is-
know what
it's not
article
an-
he's trying
it's
to
not-
find?
It's not even a study. It's Denmark went to the
It is a study.
model that the UK was considering, where they only give gender affirming care to trans youth on a what do you call it, a medical trial. That is what he's referencing. Denmark moved back from giving gender affirming.
Here's the study real quick. Right here. Health Services for Children and Young People with Gender Dysphoria. There's the name of the publication. Here's the article. Denmark joins the list of countries that have sharply restricted youth gender transitions. They go through here. They basically deconstruct the article. And let's see here. Down here, the rationale for this shift was explained in a recent publication in this article, Weekly Journal for Physicians.
affirming care to minors, except for in this situation. He's not even referencing a study. He's just referencing a policy.
Jacob, are you
From the
embarrassed yet?
Journal
Because
of the
that
Danish
warrants
Medical
embarrassment.
Association.
Yes,
That
you don't know what you're
I would
talking
be
about,
embarrassed by
Jacob.
that one.
So here,
You should be.
the
The
journal-
three
the
of us
Journal
are embarrassed
the
for you. Please
of
join
the
us.
Danish Medical Association. So you're just gonna hand wave
What
away.
about-
You're just gonna hand wave away.
It's not hand waving, Jacob. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
You
Jacob,
read the
are you
intro
seriously?
and the
Are you
conclusion.
seriously? Hold on. Are you seriously accusing us of hand waving away the Danish Medical Association as you sit here and hand wave away the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the Endocrine Society, the World Health Organization, every major medical association in this country? You are hand waving away, and you're upset that we're hand waving away a study that you didn't read.
I'm not waving them away. I'm looking at the most recent information in the most progressive countries with the best healthcare in the world.
It doesn't say the things
Yeah.
you think it says. Is that seriously your
Also,
argument right now?
It does say the
Jacob,
things that.
Jacob,
that
I'll
I'm
hand-
looking
How
at
do you
right
know
now.
you
When
didn't
you
read
can-
it?
I'll stop
told you
hand waving when you
I
give us
read
the
the foreword.
PMID or the title. What's the title? The title of the article, not Journal of Danish Medicine, it's a medical association.
Let's see here.
What's the title of the
Okay.
article? Oh, Ugerstadt.
And like I said, I assumed they would let me read through this. That was a breakdown of what was in the actual publication in the Journal of Medicine, and they wouldn't let me do that.
Get my translate.
Remember at the beginning when I
yeah.
said that having a degree doesn't make you right, but I didn't know how to properly read a scientific paper when I was in my early undergrad? This is what I'm
But
talking
now
about.
you've learned to just read. You learned.
Yeah,
Jake,
all you have to do is read from the
he's
very beginning to the very
learned-
end.
Just as you can look at a paper that breaks down all the scientific theories of Isaac Newton, and at the end, the conclusion is F equals ma, first, second, third laws of motion. You don't need to understand the entirety of the study to understand the conclusion that of the first, second, and third laws.
You know the whole thing.
You are
You are so
gaslighting
dumb,
the
Jacob.
shit out of me.
Nobody's
You are
gaslighting
gaslighting
you,
You
dipshit.
didn't read
If you're
it.
telling
You don't
telling
know
me
if I'm
you
gaslighting
can't
you because
read
you
the
didn't read it.
conclusion, if
You
I
have
can't
failed
read
to
the
articulate the
conclusion to a
basics of
medical
your position,
study,
dumbass.
You are gaslighting
Yeah.
the absolute
Wow.
shit out of me.
There's two insults.
Jacob,
Jacob,
you're right.
you
That's
don't
what
know if
that
I'm
is-
gaslighting you. You don't know what the paper
to a
says.
medical study.
Jacob, what does the word gaslighting mean? Jacob, what is the word? Jacob, stop, Jacob.
It
Jacob, what
doesn't.
is the word
At least I'm
gaslighting
playing
mean?
Dutch, not playing English.
You idiot.
You're-
Jacob, what does the
you're
word
pretending.
gaslighting mean?
3. I'm gonna lose count here, but
It means you're pretending that I'm saying something I'm not.
Jacob,
You're
that is not what the word
pretending
gaslighting
that-
means.
you're
Jacob, that is
pretending-
not what the word gaslighting means. Jacob, gaslighting is manipulating a person to questioning their own sanity. I wish I could
Yes, that's what
because
you're
you
doing. That's
need
what
to
you're doing
question
right
your
now. That's
sanity.
exactly what
You
you're doing right
fucking
now. You're
idiot.
telling me-
Jacob, you're sitting
you're
here
telling
and
me
saying
is it 4?
that you
can't
read
read
a
the
conclusion.
conclusion.
Shut the fuck up. Yes, you cannot read the conclusion and understand the entirety of why do you think they write the rest, you fucking idiot?
To get to the conclusion, dipshit.
You can't
For the
read the
data
end of
and
the
the
book.
numbers
You
for
can't read
scientists.
the
Why do you
final
think they
page.
write the
Yeah.
conclusion?
Oh my
They write it for the
fucking
data.
god! The
For the data
conclusion
and
is
numbers
a
for the
summary.
scientists and the general public.
The conclusion
The
is a
meat- the
summary.
meat and
Hey,
bones-
Jacob.
the meat
Jacob,
and
when you wrote
bones of the
papers, did you
study.
only get graded on your conclusion, you dipshit? There is important information
meat
along it.
5?
By the way,
bones.
Arden is already. Shut the fuck up. Quit trying to talk over.
6, I'm gonna count that as an insult.
You're so fucking stupid, and now
7.
you're muted. Not only is what you were trying to say in summary wasn't true, when asked for the study, you have failed to cite it.
And that's a horrible insult to call somebody fucking stupid. That's like really low. Very low bar.
So far, so you came for a gunfight and brought a rubber chicken with you. Oh, is this the time to pull out my pistol? You don't actually have a conclusion to present us. You haven't been able to give us the PMID or the title, so we can at least see if you're in the ballpark.
I would if you would shut up for a second and allow me to dissect this.
And the laws that you were initially citing instead of the study don't even say what you say they sent. Not only did Arden correct you, I looked it up since then. You were wrong.
He didn't look up shit. Has anybody seen him looking up anything? He hasn't been looking down. He hasn't been doing anything but talking. He hasn't looked up a goddamn thing.
Speaking of should be embarrassed, if gaslighting is trying to convince somebody for being an idiot to be embarrassed, then boy, am I gaslighting you. Please respond.
English. Yes.
Do
So
you speak it?
The meat. I do. So the meat and bones of a scientific study is for people who
What
are.
study?
with
What
the
study?
judgment
What
knowledge.
scientific study? What scientific study?
The
Which
foreword and
scientific-
the conclusion. Can I finish my
No,
statement?
no, Jacob.
Let me
Which
finish my statement.
scientific
Let me finish
study?
my
Because
statement.
you can't finish your statement until you present us the actual study, because we're not going to take your word
You want me to
for it.
send you-
You have not
Okay, I'll
yet
send you-
given us
you want me
the
to email a
title
link?
or the PMID. You could have given, if you have it, give me the title or the PMID. It's not that fucking hard.
I'm trying to multitask right now, and my iPad's giving me a little trouble with
Okay,
translate.
well,
I'd be more
good
than happy to
luck.
search for it. Hold on. I can get PID.
That's the sound of your
You want
rubber
article
chicken ass
reference number?
showing up to the gunfight.
You want the
No, I don't care.
you
I
want
don't
the
care.
article-
You're so
I'll
full of
give
fucking
you the
shit.
article
Get
number.
your shit together. Get
Let
your
me
shit
give you the
together and
article
call in
number.
tomorrow. 20
me give you the
minutes of
article
wasted
number.
time? No, 20 minutes of wasted time.
No,
No
so
point.
you asked
You can
for-
So now I find the article number and he wants to hang up.
call in
number, I
tomorrow.
found it, you don't
Goodbye.
want it.
You're muted.
I
You know
don't
that,
think he
right?
knows what a PMID number is. I
I
genuinely
know.
don't.
Forrest, you know that you're muted, right? Forrest!
And this is the epitome of date. This is the line on YouTube, which I believe gave, and somebody correct me if they know the truth about this, but I believe this gave birth out of the ACA crumbling after there was a trans debacle because Matt, one of the main hosts, he brought on a guest who had some questions about how to integrate transgender athletes in sports. and the community is so toxic that they split up an organization that had been held together for 25 years over the idea of how to treat transgender athletes fairly in sports, how to integrate them in a fair way. Ruin the entire institution. The institution is an absolute skeleton of what it was before. And Matt left. Matt Dillahunty left. And the other co-host, I forget her name, she had black curly hair. She left right off the bat. As soon as there was any question, as soon as they started questioning anything to do with transgender ideology and how it deals with sports. Tracy, I forget her last name, but the co-host's name was Tracy. And now, Matt Dillahunty has a transgender girlfriend. So, it just shows you how radical these the transgender community is. They're extremely radical.
No one
fuck,
can
sorry,
hear you.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, I want the number right now. That's why I was asking. I don't think he knows what a PMID is either. And I don't want him walking away from this and saying, oh, I tried to give him the number and they wouldn't listen. What's the fucking number?
I told him he can call in with it tomorrow. I told him to fucking prepare himself because we took 20 minutes about this article, and that's when I was done. 20 minutes, and we still haven't gotten to any of the meat and bones. And this is a person, just so you know.
If you would actually let me speak for more than, 20-second snippets, we would have gotten there.
There are two things on display. I've been learning a shit ton about cognitive biases, so you guys are going to keep noticing. I'm going to be talking way more about fallacies and cognitive biases. Two on display. First, confirmation bias. This is what he wants to be true, and he embraces any...
How the hell does he know I'm displaying confirmation bias? I would say he's displaying confirmation bias. He won't accept anything other than what he already believes.
Thing which he thinks affirms it, even if he doesn't know that it does, and rejects and just dismisses anything that doesn't. Two, Dunning-Kruger. And I know people are going to say, but there was an article about Dunning-Kruger that maybe it doesn't exist.
I'm not claiming to be an expert in any form, so Dunning-Kruger doesn't apply here. Dunning-Kruger applies to somebody who's studying a subject and believes they know more than the experts. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is I'm reading studies, the abstract and the foreword, and gathering what I can from the main body, and not claiming to be an expert, claiming to take the expert's word for it. So Dunning-Kruger does not apply here at all.
And just